Welcome everyone to the Let's Talk ICP podcast. Today in our episode, we are going to talk about governance, staking, rewards, votes, super interesting topics. We having with us Llorenç Muntaner Perello. He's a software engineering at DFINITY Foundation and one of the experts on the Internet Computer Blockchain Governance, the Network Nervous System, SNS. Thank you so much, Llorenç, for your time today and for being with us today.
Hi, Javier. Well, thank you for having me.
Great. Yes, always we start with an introduction of the guest. Yes, could you please introduce yourself and tell us more about your story before to start working on the DFINITY Foundation?
Yes. Well, I would say that I was a software engineer before joining DFINITY Foundation, obviously, and mainly on front-end applications. And then January last year, I joined the DFINITY Foundation to work on the team that works on both the internet identity and as well on the nervous system DApp, the SNS DApp, to move it from Flutter, because initially it was developed in a different technology, from Flutter to Svelte. And then after moving it to Svelte, we started adding new functionality.
Amazing. What did you do before working at DFINITY? Because you're from Spain, same as me. You're from Mallorca, right?
Or... Yeah, I'm from Mallorca. Well, depending on what do you mean by before? Right before, I was I'm still writing a newsletter, which right now is just a newsletter that doesn't have, I cannot put that much effort there because with a full-time job, it's not that easy, but it still is going well. And before that, I was also the project before DFINITY, I was tech lead in a pharma company where we were building an application for doctors to connect and to join events that the pharma company was either sponsoring or promoting or creating. Apart from other things, they wanted a platform for, let's say, for their customer base.
Okay, and how did you get to know the internet computer? How did you start working at DFINITY? How it was the process a year ago? And then before to start working at DFINITY, if you know about ICP, if you invest on ICP, in Genesis, or just realize the technology and the blockchain and all the potential of ICP once you start in DFINITY Foundation.
Okay, that's an interesting one, actually. It was a very a big coincidence. Initially, let's say 6 months before joining DFINITY, I was not really that much into the blockchain, especially because I naively thought that it was only about cryptocurrencies, and I was not that much interested in cryptocurrencies. But then a friend of mine told me to listen to a podcast from, I think, Naval, Navirkant, and then some other, let's say, big guys. And they were talking about something that they call it a DAO, distributed autonomous organizations. And he told me, you're going to like this because this is another use case with blockchain technology. And then I listened to that podcast and I really loved it. And then I thought, okay, this actually makes blockchain more interesting. Maybe I want to look into it. And literally the next day, it seems like a joke, but it was literally the next day, I got a message on LinkedIn from an ex-colleague of mine that was working at DFINITY, and he told me that they were looking for software engineers, let's say more front-end focused for their team. And that's how I knew about DFINITY back then. And then obviously when he told me that, I researched a little bit and then applied. And then after that, slowly, while applying during the application process, and as well, afterwards, I learned of the whole potential of internet computer, right? But to be honest, even 6 months before joining, I didn't know, and I was not that much interested. Also, I just thought that the idea was just this cryptocurrency idea, and then with the DAOs is where I got very interested in this.
Okay, okay. Wow, it's an interesting story. Yeah, so amazing the way
Yeah.
that you start working on DFINITY and on ICP. Yeah, because your background is more like as you mentioned before, you work like in a medical company.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was a software engineer there. I was the tech lead.
Yeah.
But actually, like, my background, I've done a lot of things. Not to go that we have to go there, but I learned to code in a boot camp now maybe 10 years ago
Uh-huh.
or 9 years ago. So like before that, I was a financial analyst. I actually went um to business school and then worked in venture capital and corporate finance.
Hmm.
And then I didn't like it so much. But and then got into like coding and I liked that. And then with the boot camp, I was able to make a living out of coding. And then from there slowly grow until the position here at DFINITY, which is like next level in
Uh-huh.
the software engineering world, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's probably why I also much more interested in maybe DAOs. I don't know, from a business perspective, also it's something super new.
Hmm. Okay, and yeah, tell us about your day to day in Zurich in the DFINITY H Carter. What does Llorenç do normally in a regular day?
Oof. Normally, the beginning of the day, I usually I do my to-dos on what I want to work on that day. I just prioritize what must be done for sure that day, and then other like maybe that can be done maybe another day. And mostly it's about coding. Like we barely have meetings. Like the whole team, let's say, prefers to not have many meetings. So it's not that we have like we have a daily stand up normally after lunch.
Hmm.
Mornings are very much about coding. Like I try to skip any meeting or anything in the mornings until lunch. I wake up early morning and then I start working immediately. Maybe I will go to the office or not. Depends on the day. Usually come maybe 3-4 times a week, maybe to the office to see people. Monday is our day in the office for the whole team. And then in the afternoons is when I might have maybe one, like maybe we discuss something with a colleague from the team or not, with product,
Hmm.
maybe with another team, like we were doing something together. But it's like, honestly, it's a lot of coding or reviewing code, let's say, right? That's my main job right now.
Okay. Yes, as a software engineering, you are sitting mostly in the governance part of ICP, the NNS, Network Nervous System, that is the brain of Internet Computer. Is an open and autonomous governance running 100% on chain. Could you explain us what is exactly NNS and what is the value proposition? Why is the most important thing on Internet Computer? And I had a conversation in the podcast with Diego Prats, the R&D special projects as well, and he mentioned me maybe NNS is the most underrated DApp on Internet Computer. uh,
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, I think that I like love the idea of like how the internet computer governs itself. Like other blockchains might have that anyone can be a node, right? And a node provider or like be part of the blockchain. But on internet computer, not anyone can be a node provider, which is a big difference. But that allows us for much more efficiency on the algorithms when you know exactly who is a node provider. This is more for because of the crypto that is behind the blockchain. But to add the decentralization, right? Because if not everyone can be no provider, then that means that it's centralized. But to allow for decentralization with this eventuality, they created a DAO to manage the platform. So like it is like anyone actually can become a node provider, but the other node providers or the other, let's say, or the platform needs to prove that person to be a node provider. So I think it was very smart idea like that. You create a DAO to govern your own platform, and that DAO also lives in the same platform. So like it's a meta, it's a very meta like a discussion there because the platform itself governs itself. And that's why they can make it decentralized in the sense that yes, anyone can be a node provider, but not right now. You just need to add your, let's say, make a proposal to become a node provider. I think that they are working on making that easier and easier to become node provider. That still like maybe will come at some point. That's very easy. Right now it's a little maybe trickier, but anyway, in the point, like anyone can become node provider. You need to make a proposal, and people just can vote on you, right? So like the NNS itself, it's a DAO that governs the platform. Therefore, because it's a DAO, is decentralized, right? So I think that's also like maybe it's harder to understand that the NNS itself is also a DAO. It's obviously probably the first DAO of the internet computer, right? Yeah. So the platform itself is a DAO governed by the same platform.
And how like people can be part of this DAO? We have the ICP, right? The Internet Computer Protocol token that we can buy in centralized exchanges, CoinStore, Kraken, Binance, or whatever. And then how is exactly the process? If I like because I love ICP for sure. You know, like I have a lot of staking there. 8 years gang. I'm like a 8 year for sure. Like I love the tokens. But for like a newbie, how it works exactly? What is the process? If you can explain a little bit more in an easy way, the process to from the scratch, like everything. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So the process I would start like from, let's say, from currency, from dollars, euros, or francs, right? To ICPs, or even to being part of this DAO, of this NNS, this network system. So first you need to, let's say, convert your dollars into ICPs, and to do that, you will have to rely on one of these big exchanges, right? You say maybe Coinbase, whatever. You need to add some of your dollars there or euros, and then there they have an exchange to buy ICPs. So you just buy your ICPs on that exchange, and now in that moment, actually, you still don't really hold your ICP because it's actually Coinbase holding your ICP, right? And then obviously they have mapping, but this is still like, let's say, centralized within Coinbase. And then from there, you cannot yet, let's say, create and control what is called a neuron, which is the entity that you use to vote, right? So to be able to do that, you have to, let's say, send from Coinbase those ICP that you bought there to another user, probably in another dApp, which is the NNS dApp, which is like the network system application on the internet computer. So like there, you need to create an identity there. You need to create a user there, right? That we just go there and then follow the process to sign in. And that will give you an address on NNS dApp. And then from Coinbase, you need to send your ICPs to that address. And then is where you will actually hold ICPs, right? Because at Coinbase, they belong to Coinbase, and then Coinbase, let's say, had a contract with you. But if you send that to your NNS, let's say, user, then in that case, in that moment, you actually own your ICPs. And it's on-chain that you own that because you have access to that user, and actually that's attached to your device, your computer. Then you can add your phone as well if you want, other devices. And then it's that device, therefore your user with that anchor, that holds the ICP. So once you are there, let's say on the NNS dApp, there are other ways, but the easiest way probably is on the NNS dApp, you can then create a neuron, where it's called, right? And with the neuron is how you can vote. And so we just, from there, you should see, after transferring your money from Coinbase, you should see your balance on the wallet on the NNS dApp. And then from there, you have to, let's say, go to the specific tab that is like neuron staking, I believe, or something like that it's called. Mm-hmm. And then from there, you need to stake a neuron. And staking a neuron, like, why do you need to stake a neuron to vote? Well, like the point is that to vote, people need to have, let's say, skin in the game, right? More or less, I think that's the best summary to do it is like you want people to vote to have a skin in the game. And the best way to have a skin in the game is by locking your ICP so that you cannot touch it, right? So like you make some investment, and then with that investment, then you lock it, and then you can vote on it. But then you cannot liquidize that part. So they use this entity of a neuron to perform this, to make you add a skin in the game in the process. right? So like you create a neuron, and just with the neuron, you cannot vote because the neuron by itself, then it can be converted back to ICP. So you need to lock that neuron. And then you can choose how long you want to lock it, but at least need to be locked by 6 months to be able to vote. If it's less than 6 months, then you cannot vote. If it's more, then you can vote. So the easiest way, like to recap, you need to send with your credit card or with a transfer. You create a user on Coinbase, for example, or Binance. Then you send your money to your user on Coinbase. In there, you buy some ICPs. Then also in parallel, you can create a user on the SNS DApp, right? And then from Coinbase with that ICP, you get the address from your SNS DApp. You put it on Coinbase, and on Coinbase, you make a transfer of ICPs from your Coinbase, let's say, address to your address on the SNS DApp. And then you have the balance on the SNS DApp. And from there, you need to stake a neuron. And then you need to lock that neuron to be able to vote.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a simple process. It's not a one-step process. We are aware of that. We're working on improving the process, but so far, this is it.
Yeah, but this is normal process, right? If you want to convert things
Yes.
from the centralized sites to the centralized Web3 100% on chain, for sure, it's not just like click one button. It's like a little
No,
bit.
exactly. In the end, if you think about like the currencies are centralized, so you first have to be able to convert the centralized currency or resources into the decentralized world, and just moving that, it is the big thing. Yes.
Okay, and then once we have the ICP token and we convert to a neuron, unlock the neurons to have the votes, minimum is 6 months, maximum is 8 years, right?
Correct. Yes.
And the longest you stake the ICPs, the more power you have, the more votes you have, correct?
Correct. That's actually like another good point in the sense that there is each neuron has a voting power, right? So when you vote, obviously, then like what counts is your voting power, not only how many ICPs you have there, but the voting power. To make it easier, like when you when you lock your neuron for 8 years, you are doubling your voting power. So if you stake 10 ICPs, you have a voting power of actually 20 or kind of 20. This calculation is a bit more complex. I'm not going to go into details, but this is enough to understand the idea, right? And then if you like lucky for 6 months, then there's no extra voting power. There's like barely like added voting power to your stake. So the longer you lock your neuron, the more voting power you have, which makes sense because that means that you have more skin in the game, and that wants to like the internet wants to reward people for adding a skin in the game, right? The more money, and at the same time, the longer you lock it, those two are the biggest variables, let's say, to understand the voting power. And then that when you vote, when people make proposals, then the neurons vote, and what the only thing that matters on voting is the voting power. It doesn't even matter how much stake you have because that's actually not a thing. It's the voting power. The calculation of voting power takes into account the stake and the lock time. Yeah. And then based on that, then the proposal passes or not.
And yeah, in terms of the locking, for example, because this is also good to people knows about how it works, the locking and the dissolving, right? Because, for example, if you lock your neuron for 8 years, then you have to dissolve your neuron to convert in ICP. That is another 8 years. For example, my commitment is full commitment, but it means if you staking during 8 years and you dissolve your neuron at the end of the 8th year, you need to wait another 8 years to have the double of your ICPs. That maybe in 16 years, if you lock your ICPs, maybe you're a millionaire. But this is something like people needs to know, right? If you lock for 4 years, it's 8 years. For 2 years, 4 years.
That's a good point. Yes. So like the neuron can be just locked, right? So the state of the neuron can be just locked, that you have it for 8 years, but being locked does not mean that you will. Like when let's start from the beginning. So like when you create a neuron just without locking it, you can we call it disburse it, right? So you can convert it back to ICP. So that's disbursing a neuron.
Okay.
And when you lock your neuron, it means that at least that amount of time has to pass before you can disburse it, at least. And because that amount of time starts counting when you start dissolving your neuron. So if you don't say dissolve, then it always stays by 8 years. So like, let's say if now, let's just put it with 1 year, which maybe it is easier. If I lock it for 1 year, if I only lock it, that does not mean that in 1 year I can, as you mentioned, I can disburse it and get the ICPs. What it means is that just when I start choosing to dissolve it, it will take 1 more year. So if I lock it and dissolve it immediately, in 1 year, I will be able to disburse it. If I lock it now, let's say, and then in 6 months, I start dissolving it, then that means that in let's say 1 year and 6 months, I will be able to disburse it. So it's actually the time of you locking starts counting when you start dissolving. Right. So like when you start dissolving, it's then when you the counting will start going down, and then you will know when you can disburse it. As long as you have it locked by 8 years, that just means that at any moment in time when you start dissolving, it will take 8 more years. So it is a slightly complex idea, that is true. And by default, when you lock a neuron, it will not start dissolving, right? You need to actually explicitly start dissolving it. So that's also like a little bit trickier to understand, right? But that's the power. So if you just have it locked, it doesn't mean that in 8 years you have the ICPs unless it's dissolving. So like you have the state of it's unlocked, it's dissolving, or it's locked. So we have actually 3 states of the neuron, right?
Right. Yeah, but this is important, and I really appreciated your full explanation, because this is something like normally people, even like experts, like have a long time investing in ICP, they don't know exactly how it works, and this is something like we need to, like to spread.
Correct. I believe that this is specific to the internet computer, right? Like this idea of dissolving and locking it this way. I think that the best way to interpret that is like maybe in other places like they're just 2 states, right? It's locked or not locked. But here you are like 3 states. Like you just have your neuron that is unlocked, and then it's disbursable. You can just convert it to ICP whenever you want. Then you have a neuron that is locked, which even if it's locked by 1 year or 8 years, it doesn't matter, right? Both, let's say, just by being locked, you don't know when you can disburse a neuron. It's only when you start dissolving it, when it becomes the state of dissolving, where you know when you will be able to disburse that neuron. So on that sense, let's say even if I had it locked by 1 year, and then you start logging it by 8 years, then that doesn't mean that my neuron will be disbursable earlier than yours, right? Because if I log it for 1 year, but I never start dissolving it, right? It's different than locking it now for 8 years and start immediately dissolving it. You'll be able to disburse it in 8 years. But if I just lock it now for 1 year and only start dissolving it in 10 years, then I will take 11 years to be able to disburse my ICPs. So that is actually like, it is complex. It is a little bit.
I mean, for example, if for people like love ICP and want to have like full commitment with ICP, it means the best way is locking during 8 years and start dissolving in 8 years, correct?
Yes. Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be like that. I mean, for me, that's the one that makes sense. But the user, it's up to them when they want to start dissolving. Like you get the full power of the lock-in when you lock for 8 years. And during that month, like while you are having locked by 8 years, then your voting power is doubled of the stake. Yeah. And that is a huge thing, right? When you start dissolving it, your voting power starts decreasing.
True.
So like a dissolving of 8 years is not the same as a locked of 8 years. Like this is taken into account. So like we just state your neuron is taken into into consideration of the voting power calculation, right? So like, that's why it's important to understand the differences, let's say. But yeah, I mean, a dissolving neuron of 8 years is not the same as a locked neuron of 8 years. So, but at the same time, like a locked neuron of 1 year is also not the same as a dissolving of 6 years. So it is, I think that more or less it's just one-to-one, more or less on the, but dissolving makes a, like, has an effect on the voting power.
And the voting power have effects to the interest, right, that you get from the
Exactly. And then the voting power has effect on the rewards that you get, on the maturity that you get. Correct. Exactly.
Okay. That's good. And then, yeah, NNS want to, like, people have committed and engaged and be active and vote because the proposals, if you vote the proposals, you get more rewards, right? And compared with if you're like a passive and you don't vote anything. And NNS have an option to follow neurons. It means there are like decentralized entities. Anyone can be. It's like same as like
Twitter, yes.
yeah.
Anyone can follow anyone.
Me or you, we can, like, okay, I want to, like, be like the person who people vote me, and then once I decide whatever I want to do, people, like, follow me, and the vote is for me, right? And we have, it's amazing. It's like 100% decentralized way, and everybody can be part of the neurons. Everybody can follow the different neurons, but how it works exactly, because it's different things, right? For example, there are like DFINITY Foundation, Internet Computer Association, even there are like crypto is good, for example, is like an influencer, or there are a lot of people there. How it works exactly, and how we can follow neurons, if you can explain a little bit more this part.
Yes, of course. That is a very good point. Like, that's actually one of the most important parts. Maybe like we do in normal governance of a country, you vote your representative, right? That will actually will do what you think it's good. So here it is similar to that. Yeah, you can just follow and tell, like, okay, I trust this person, or I trust this entity, and then I want to vote what they vote. So like, and the good thing on the NNS is that you can follow per topics, even. So like, I can follow this entity or this, well, you follow specific neurons, but behind that neuron, there can be a person, there can be a community, there can be different entities right behind the neuron. But you follow the neuron. So you can say, okay, I will follow this neuron for the exchange rate thing is topics. I will follow this neuron for the SNS topics. I will follow this neuron for the governance topics, or for the replica updates. So you can choose also what you want to, who you trust on and what topic. And that's actually like very important. Then you can, in general, like technically speaking, you can follow anyone. And that's really nice. But because this is maybe not so user-friendly, there is the concept of, let's say, called influencers, or technically speaking, they are more known neurons. That's, in the end, they are just influencers, internet computer, that we specify explicitly, we list them explicitly on the NNS DApp, so that you can just follow them easier without knowing their neuron ID, right? If you want to follow a neuron, you need to know the neuron ID, the identification of that neuron to be able to follow it. But for these influencers, then we just offer the list there on the NNS app, and you can just follow them. And that's to become an influencer. That's also interesting. It's also decentralized, right? You can actually make a proposal to become an influencer, and then you will appear in the list. Like, if they vote for your proposal to be accepted, then you will like suddenly become an influencer, which is nice, right? Like, the influencers, it's not that much that they know a lot about that, they don't know a lot about that, or like that they have this amount of followers. It's more that, has the platform consider you, like, does the platform consider you an influencer or not? And they do that by a proposal and by voting, by accepting your proposal to become an influencer or a known neuron or not. And then, so like, when you follow them, then you will make the same votes as them. And then you will make sure that you get the rewards, the maturity.
Yeah.
And then yeah, by following them.
Okay, sounds sounds really interesting, and it's pretty open source and open for everyone to participate on the governance. And then also we have an option here in the NNS for the community fund membership. When we stake your neurons, you can participate in the community fund. I'm not sure if this project is we need more about it, or is already something like the foundation is working on, because for sure it means like you join the community fund, right, to support growing projects on ICP, different apps on ICP, and the money is for them. And then in the future, if the projects are good, well, and they like have a high performance, you can even have more ICPs and more rewards, correct?
Correct. The community fund is a way, it doesn't, it uses your maturity. So let's say it uses the maturity that's created by when you vote to make investments. So that's also like the interesting part. Is like there's like in the end there are like different way, like your maturity can become different things, right? Can become more voting power, can become, let's say, other investments in other projects through the community fund, or then you can then spawn into ICPs, right? And then waiting for 7 days, like with the spawning functionality. So in the end, like that's what the 3 things that you can do with your maturity right now, right? You can either invest in others through the community fund, increase your voting power, or then trying to spawn it back into ICPs for whatever, then say, use case that you might have for these ICPs. So, and then, so the using the voting power is clear, spawning into ICP is also clear, and this is the investment of the on other projects. This is through what we call it the community fund, right? Because any neuron can belong to that one, and then that means that any neuron then any user will get the rewards of the rewards. Let's say well, in this case, they will get the tokens of whatever project they are backing, right? And then in this case, this is done because when they release a new project, that maybe we'll talk about a little bit later with the SNSs. So when a new DAO is created, the DAO makes a proposal, and the DAO also makes a proposal of how much the DAO wants from the community fund. And then if that gets accepted, if there's enough maturity in the community fund, then it gets invested. And you as a user, you can leave the community fund at any moment, right? Which makes sense, because let's say that there is a proposal of a project, and then they want 100,000 maturity from the community fund, but you don't like that project. You can just leave the community fund at that moment, until, let's say, at that moment that the proposal maybe passes or not, but they will not use your maturity at that moment. So if you leave the community fund, you can always leave the community fund before an investment is made if you don't agree with that investment. But in the end, it's like, as I was saying, there are 3 things that you can do with your maturity, right? Increase your voting power, invest in other projects, or convert it back to ICP after the delay.
Okay, yeah. And then because I'm not a tech guy, I'm economist, I know about finance, for sure I love technology, but I'm not a tech guy, I'm not a software developer, and I have like a few questions about the NNS. There are an option as well, it's like hotkeys, add hotkey. I never use this option. I think I never will be used, but what is exactly this, the add hotkey?
The hotkey is it's you are giving the permission to vote with your neuron to somebody else. So in that sense, it will be similar to following, but in this case, you give it to another user. So you say, hey, you're another entity that can vote for you with your neuron, right?
can decide which person or which entity you give the vote.
Exactly. Well, not the vote. Like you give the permission to use your neuron in certain ways, and one of them is to manage your voting, right? And also to manage your followers, right? So like this person can also set followers for you.
Oh,
So that's the way. Normally, this is done when you have hardware wallets that manage, let's say, your neuron. So like the neuron is controlled by hardware wallet, and then because hardware wallet needs always you need to have your device with you. You always need to press and confirm things. But there are some actions that you want to do like on a daily basis, and maybe you don't have your device with you or whatever, and that's why you can give, let's say, you can give a hotkey to a user, which will be maybe it's just a normal login to that user, so that they can, let's say, manage some of the voting or the followers for you, so that you don't have to remember to take your device with you at all times, right? And I think that's why the hotkey is a known concept, let's say, in other blockchains, and they kept it in the sense that it is a key that it's being used many times, like that wants to have access and actions with a neuron. The opposite is more a call key. A call key, it would be like the controller that you don't want to touch. Like it just called because it's never being used. So hotkey is like one that you have regular access, and then you can always easily use it. And so that, but in the end, you just similar to followers, but with a little bit more power with your neuron, right? Because they can also set followers for you. A follower cannot change your followers, but the hotkey can change your followers.
Okay, good to know. And then the other question that I have is the other option is my canisters, where you can create canister or link canister. This is more focusing for developers, right? Because they can create and manage their canisters and even the cycles consumption here that for use for developing dapps. But I'm right. This is like how it works.
Correct. The canisters is the developer only functionality. That is just the convenience UI to manage some of the canisters. Most developers might not use this device to create the canisters. They can be created other ways. But there we give a nice UI to maybe monitor the cycles of your canisters, right? Like this can be done many other ways, but it is an easy way to manage the cycles, to see how many cycles they still have. The cycle is just like a unit that it's used to when the canister, let's say when the program runs, it consumes cycles, like the same way that in AWS you will give an invoice of 10 euros, then that will be the cycle, right? You pay by cycle.
For example, sorry, for the Ethereum is like the gas fees, but in internet computer is like gas reverse model, right? People don't pay gases or don't pay fees for use the dapps. The developers pay cycles, that is gas fees, for developing their own projects, correct?
Correct, exactly. And in the canisters, you can increase your cycles to your canisters, see how many they have, like not much more, right? It's a very simple UI.
Okay, perfect. And yeah, then the other feature that is pretty new is the current launches. The launch like the SNS, the service network system is like the DAOs for new projects. Then they can create their own token, right? And do the same thing on the same like SNS, but directly for applications, right? And it's like 100% decentralized. Now we are, or in the NNS, we have the SNS1, that is more like an experiment, right? The first SNS DAO on internet computer. And then there is a new project, is Openchat, that they did the decentralized sale, 5.5 million. They get 5.5 million just in 5 hours last week. That is pretty awesome. Yes, first of all, before to dig in more in the Openchat and the SNS, can you explain a little bit more what is that? What is that SNS and how it works?
Yes, the interesting part, like of this part of the SNSs is It doesn't add any functionality per se to the platform. It was already possible to create a DAO on the internet computer, right? What this makes a difference is that it makes a standardized way that any DApp can use to become a decentralized autonomous organization, right? So like until now, let's say every DAO that wanted to become a DAO had to make the effort of becoming a DAO, of like making sure that they have the governance system, they have the token system, and like the whole system to manage a DAO. They had to do that themselves. And I believe like with this SNS, what the biggest advantage is that it creates like a standard and customizable at the same time way to become a DAO, so that now any DApp in the internet computer can easily become a DAO, like a decentralized organization, right? And I think that that's the biggest part here. It has not been purely just new functionality on the platform. It has been more a layer above in standardizing, because since, let's say, DFINITY had been running a DAO for years with the SNS, they have learned what a DAO needs, right? And then they have applied all this knowledge we have applied all this knowledge to creating this process of becoming a DAO, a standardized one, right? Also with plenty of customization, which also has been, let's say, it is a complex standardization, a complex system. But in the end, it's just like an easy way to become a DAO, right? For developers, it will not be anymore about an effort. It will just be a decision that whether you want to become a DAO or not, like a decision, and then the process will be taken care of.
Okay. And then, yeah, I know you work tirelessly the last month working on the SNS DAO on Openchat. Openchat is the decentralized WhatsApp or Telegram on ICP, but it's an evolution because even you can send and receive Bitcoins or ICP tokens. That's super interesting. Yeah, tell us more about behind the scenes, what happened there, like what was for you the last month for the SNS?
Yeah, no, it's actually, yes, there was the last couple of months were very exciting, but at the same time also they're like a lot of work, right? Because definitely like after SNS1, we discovered, and that's actually what the whole point of SNS1, right? We discovered a lot of, in many places, right? Like attack vectors, small bugs on the governance itself, but those were the minimum. Mostly like what changed mostly was the participation flow. That was the big thing that we discovered, and it happened that it was easier for bots, let's say, to participate. So we had to improve a lot the participation flow. So that's the part that we work mostly. That one, and also scalability, right? Like the SNS1 overloaded the platform, and then it became not usable during a small amount of time. Nothing was lost, and no state was lost, no tokens were lost. But for a moment, let's say, nobody could use the UI because the system was overloaded. Which actually was a really interesting stress testing for the platform to really to challenge the platform like with a lot of traffic. And yes, it was overloaded, but at the same time, nothing happened, right? It didn't break. So that was very good. So we worked on these two places. Like one is like the improving the payment, and on the scalability. And even before that, also like the preparing the whole SNS was also a huge thing. So like behind the scenes, there was a lot of things that most users will not see. And actually, like a lot of the code that we have written has not been used, let's say, luckily, because a lot of was defensive engineering, right? In the sense of like defensive for attackers, defensive for high load, defensive for even a bigger load that we had, which was already like a lot of load that we had for Openchat, especially the first 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Was a huge spike, but then it slowed down. And we were watching it there on live on the logs of the logs, some graphs that the team prepared to understand and then to see whether it would block or not. So that part was very exciting. On Friday morning Zurich time, we were just following. We had like a specific Zoom with that we call like the war room, to just keep track of the flow. There were some bets on how long it will take to reach the 1 million. So, and then in the end, everything went very smoothly. The system got a lot of load, but we didn't overload. So that's good. So that means that all the work that we did the previous months worked. Also, I believe only one person needed a refund of like 2,000 people that participated. So I would say that's good. And even this person refund, we still don't understand exactly what happened on that flow, because we saw that there was an open, let's say, participation that didn't finish. But in the sense behind the scenes, it were very exciting. Like there were, like, as I said, like some graphs prepared by the team to be able to monitor it. And even before also, we were able to, we knew what we had to work on after the SNS. And it was a lot of work on like making sure that it would be ready for SNS1, for Openchat, because we didn't want the same experience, both in scalability and in the sense of bots, right? I think that the SNS1 had too many bots. We were not expecting that, because it was just, there was nothing to attack. There, we were aware that they could attack, to be honest, but we decided to just accept it, because it was just experiment and they didn't gain anything out of attacking. And we knew that we had to work on that. So it's not that the roadmap changed. The scalability also, we knew that that was something that we had to work on, but it was not prioritized. We're not expecting that much load for the SNS1. The SNS1 took us a little bit by surprise, in a good way, right? In the sense that people were really excited about that. But it was more experimenting the functionality of the DAO itself, rather than a lot of users and the payment flow, which we knew that we had to work on.
Exactly, yeah. And then with the SNS1, you learn the lessons, solve the mistakes and all the problems. And then, honestly, the Openchat launch SNS, it was pretty smoothly. Yeah, the flow was pretty good. Honestly, for me, it was because I'm in Vancouver, 11 p.m. I put the alarm by my chat tokens is the token of Openchat. But it was really good. Congratulations, honestly, to the whole
Thank you.
team, because this was really good. And then just for finish the conversation, this interesting
conversation. Right, let me just say like that. It's worth mentioning. Let's say our team in the US, they actually stayed awake the whole night, a couple, right? Because it was 11 p.m. for them, but they really had to do, because in the end it was either China or US. It was one or the other could be screwed, right? And this way is still okay. The US, as you said, like you were still able to participate by not getting that crazy in the middle of the night. And in China, they were also like be able to participate because it was night for them, but not that late either. So that timing was tricky. And the US team, I mean, part of the US team that stayed late the whole night also like deserve like a big congratulations as well, because everything went smooth also thanks to them.
For sure, yeah. Big shout out as well to the American DFINITY team, for sure. And just for finish the conversation, Llorenç, what is next for you? What is the next steps? What is your next goals? Not just like maybe for projects on DFINITY, or maybe not sure. Maybe you have other projects, or you're working now in maybe Ethereum integration, or in other parts, not sure, or you are still focusing on improve the SNS and NNS?
I believe that mostly it's still improving SNS on our team. The official roadmap, I don't have it at the top of my head. On our side, short term right now, it is making it still more scalable. Because right now there might be a lot of SNSs. So we need to make sure that it can scale to multiple SNSs. not just a lot of people on one SNS, but rather also like multiple SNSs that are going to be tricky. And as well, adding functionality on the SNS app for SNS, right? Like right now, for example, you cannot vote on SNS proposal for the SNS app. That's something that we're working on. And then there's also like some improvements on our payment flow that we're looking for using QR codes for this and for a few things. And I think we already deployed a few, so it's just slowly coming up there. But yeah, I mean, I will need to check more later the roadmap, but like mostly it is still SNS focused. Because there's still like a long way to bring the SNS at the level of, I mean, in the SNS app, let's say, to bring it at the level of the NNS, right? We're just still like missing a lot of features there.
Nice. Yeah, but I'm happy to hear that you're working on that, because we need to improve every single day. The SNS is like an experiment, right? Not only on ICP, it's only like an experiment in the blockchain industry and the Web3 industry, because Internet Computer Protocol, the NNS SNS, is pretty unique. I'm not sure, but I don't know if any other blockchain doing these things, at least in the way that Internet Computer Protocol is doing. Yeah, that's great that we have like a huge team, a smart team that working on tirelessly to have a smooth and better user experience, right, for the investor.
We're learning a lot with the Openchat guys, right? Like, because they will be the first one that really manage the project as a DAO with technology that we have built. And they're always like in a small feature request, right, from them, like, hey, like we cannot do this, or like this is how do we do this, and sometimes it is possible, but like in a weird way. So because they are the first one that became an SNS, they are kind of the guinea pig in that sense as well, on testing this at on the real world, right? So that's also why we chose them, probably.
They give you a daily feedback, and they are pretty demanding. I did like a last
they are.
With Hamish Pebbles, one of the founders, and I know the team are pretty smart, and they are so demanding. They want the best for Openchat, and I think they are doing like feedbacks, and they want improvements for your team for sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, yes, Llorenç Muntaner Perello, thank you so much, honestly, for your time today. It's pretty clear, everything, because I know it's pretty tough to explain in an easy words for people, not only for ICP users, also for outsiders, for people that maybe are interested in the future to invest on ICP. And honestly, you explained very well, very clearly, all the aspects, all the features, all the things for the NNS and SNS feature. And yeah, the best of luck in the future for you, for your projects. Yeah, and see you soon. Not sure if you want to add something for the community, for the Let's Talk ICP audience.
No, thank you for having me. And I think it has been great to be able to explain it. I love talking about it. Maybe the only like what I would add is like feel free to go. There's like a forum on the DFINITY, and it is actively like it is very active, and also like the team takes very seriously the feedback that we receive there. Like it's actually like one of our main, let's say, sources of user feedback is the forum. So I would encourage even to ask questions like, how do I do that? People will answer you either from the team or like from the community, right? So like that forum, it's one of the best sources to understand the internet computer and to ask questions, and even like from the future roadmap, or like we're very open there on what we are building, how to do things, and sometimes things cannot be possible, and that also like reply there.
Okay, sounds good. And then yeah, just like we promised to the audience that we will do a demonstration about the NNS, the whole process, maybe for next week. Llorenç promised me that he want to do that. Yeah, that's all. Thank you so much, Llorenç. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.